Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! So nerds!
Hello,
nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and true. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds. That's your cue.
Sorry. Hello, nerds. Sorry.
All good, all good. Mr. Bond is in the house. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
So do you go, should I refer to you as Bond, Mr. Bond?
You can call me Noah, that's my real name, or you just call me Bond, either way.
Noah, like the Ark?
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. All right, Noah. Well, look, for those of you out there who are not familiar with Mr. Bond, he is on Twitter. And what's your Twitter handle?
It's at Windows is bad.
That's right. That's right. Mr. Bond is the display name, but the Twitter handle is at Windows is bad. And Mr. Bond / Noah and I have exchanged a few tweets over the months about a variety of political issues. And we often disagree on things. And I thought, oh, well, this would be a great thing to do on this live stream, just to kind of get to know you and your perspective a little better. And yeah, you know, I'm sure we'll throw out a few topics where you and I can continue to disagree, but it'll be kind of fun nonetheless. Like, before we get into, you know, probably stuff about masks and testing and COVID and Trump, could you just give a little bit of background about yourself, Noah, whatever you're comfortable sharing, so that folks can just get to know you?
So I'm a computer guy. I like technology. I do programming, IT, all other good stuff. I'm an avid Trump supporter since 2015, but I'm also an avid Yang supporter since when he announced his running. I started looking at him, and then I was like, oh shit, this dude's ideas, they all make sense. So I was all for Yang, and I was like, I'm going to vote for Yang if he wins the convention, right? He didn't. He dropped out. I was like, well, damn. And then he started, you know, all that other stuff happened afterwards. Like, yeah, come on. But, you know, I'm still Yang Gang. I do believe Yang would be the best person for president right now. If he were still running, I would vote for him regardless. But right now, the only people running right now is you got Trump, Biden, Vermin Supreme, Justin Amash, and who's the Green Party guy? Howie.
I don't even know.
Howie. Out of all those, I'm all for Trump. You know.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dig into the post. You said when Yang suspended, it sounded like he was going in directions that you weren't comfortable with. Like, what do you mean?
So I do respect that he did. You know, like he endorsed the winner. Right. And I get that. I think he endorsed Biden way too early. I think there was still room for Bernie. Because I don't like Bernie's policies, but I do like Bernie as a person. And I think he would have been a much better person to choose than Biden. And if it was Bernie versus Trump, I would probably have voted third party rather than voting for Trump directly, because at that point, I don't like Bernie's policies. But if enough people do, I like Bernie as a person. And I think he would have been a good leader. Even if I didn't like his policies, like Obama, I think Obama was a good leader. I didn't like his policies, but he was a good leader, right? So that's essentially where I was going there. But then all of a sudden, Yang endorses Biden. I'm like, well, shit, we're gonna have Biden versus Trump. You know, sorry for language. But...
No, it's all good. He was one of. I will say that Yang was the later endorsers of Biden. A lot of the kind of official DNC insider types where they did it before or all right after Super Tuesday or before Super Tuesday.
Yeah,
it was all coordinated.
All at the same time. It felt a little bit coordinated to me, but you know, that's life. It happens.
All right. Someone is Yvonne is asking for your Twitter. It's at Windows.
Windows is bad. Windows is bad.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So, by the way, all Windows, like, did you have a bad experience?
Windows 10, Windows 10, Windows 10. I hate Windows 10.
For the older folks out there, there was a release, Windows XP
That's the
Service
best
Pack
Windows.
2.
Yep, that's the best
And
Windows out there.
I used to work at Microsoft back when they were sort of stopping support for it, and there were a bunch of us who bought a bunch of extra licenses for XPSP2 because we were like, oh man, I don't know how the next stuff is gonna. I think after that was maybe Millennium Edition or something. It was
Wait,
not,
wasn't
not
great.
no, that ain't gonna go in the Windows Hall of Fame. So yeah, so at Windows is bad is your handle. So you were saying so when Yang endorsed Biden, that kind of took his stock down a little bit for you.
Yes,
you would have preferred
extremely.
that he just. What would you have preferred that he just stayed?
I would have preferred that he stuck with Bernie, Tulsi, or really any other candidate than Biden. To be so, I'm gonna be honest here. The only candidate that I saw up there that I was like, I absolutely dislike this person is Joe Biden. I'm okay with Kamala Harris. I don't hate her. I don't dislike her. I think it's great. She's going out for a UBI right now. I think it's amazing that she's promoting the $2,000 per month during quarantine. I liked Bernie as a person, maybe not his policies, but that's not all that matters, to be honest, when it comes to a president.
When you say you like Bernie as a person, you thought Obama was a good leader, but you also think Trump is a good leader.
I do.
What are the characteristics that?
So with Obama and Bernie, you got charisma, you got friendliness, and you have a good personality, right? But Trump, he has the adverse effects, but still a good leader. He isn't in my opinion, he's not as charismatic as Obama or Bernie, right? But he's blunt. I think being blunt is an extremely important aspect of a leader. That's something Obama and Bernie both don't have. I guess Bernie has it, but not Obama, right? So he's very blunt. He's the thing. I do have my issues with Trump. The biggest issue is he refuses to go across party lines, right? He likes to stick with the right-wing evangelicals, right? He does like to do that, and I get it, because of, if you look at the way the media has treated him for the past 4 years, even before he was becoming, when he first announced his running, it was an all-scale attack on Trump, right? So, and I get it, right? Like, the media was like, well, shit, we gotta expose some of this stuff, but you have to, So I do get it. He's been pushed away by the left, and he's pushed away the left himself, right? So I think there is problems with Trump, but I also think overall his policies are great. I think as a leader, he's the person I would rather have representing us on the global scale with NATO, the UN, and all those other, global situations than Joe Biden.
You mentioned Joe was one of the few candidates that you really had a distaste for. Yeah. What is it about Joe that
it's his history? It's his history. It's his voting. He's not consistent at all, in my opinion. He is the most inconsistent person I've ever met. Not met, but seen on the political scale. He changes his view with whatever's most popular. If you've seen his new policies, half of them are straight from Bernie, which were not there when he started running in the beginning. But so I don't think he's honest. I think that most of his policies he's not going to do. I think he's completely lying about a lot of them just to get elected. I also think he's a horrible speaker. He has a hard time speaking for longer than 45 minutes. When you get him past the 45-minute mark, he starts to degrade and just starts rambling like I do. So my issues with Joe Biden is mostly his inconsistency, a lot of his history, and his Obama years were not his best years, in my opinion.
All right. So for the inconsistency part, I mean, a lot of people would say that Trump was pro-choice. He seemed like a New York Republican. And again, he went Trump to Hillary's wedding or whatever, or invited Hillary to his wedding. He wasn't like a hardcore red.
Well, Trump wasn't a politician until 3 years ago, right? He ran for president, but as a joke. Let's be honest here. He ran for president again as a joke. He just happened to win this time, but that's just what happened, right? You gotta deal with the cards you're dealt. But so he just happened to win this time. But again, he wasn't a politician. He didn't have any official policy stances. He was just a real estate personality on TV, right?
Mhm.
I do think that he has been pushing way too much to the right, and I think it's really going to backfire this election cycle. He's been pushing way too much to the far right. He's been trying to get their support. I don't know why he already has it, but he's making. I don't think he's making the best decision right now when he pushes to the far right. But I also think he's better than Joe Biden.
Yeah. So you mentioned that he wasn't really a politician before. Is it that you feel like his positions haven't changed over the years, or is
They
your
have changed.
position?
They have changed. But when he came in, like Trump, when he came in, he was new. He didn't know a lot about all this stuff, right? Let's be honest here. You think he knew what pro-choice meant? I don't, to be honest here. But I think he's learning. I think he's understanding like more about politics, how it's working. I think he's done a great job. Like I would vote if I wasn't allowed to vote in 2016 because I was 15 years old at that
Mhm.
point. But I was okay. Yeah, I would have voted for him, not because of his policies in general at that time. I've switched to supporting his policies, but back then it was his personality. Same thing with Obama, right? He was
Mhm.
funny, and he wasn't Hillary Clinton. It's the same thing with Biden. You see?
Yeah. Yeah. So your it sounds like part of your support for Trump is because of your distaste for the alternative.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how I got pushed to him, and that's why I'm staying with him because the DNC decided not to learn, right? Like, you see 2016, you would think they would go for someone that isn't Hillary Clinton in the male form, right? And that's what Joe Biden is.
Hmm. And you also mentioned, Noah, that some of Trump's policies you've been pretty happy with. Like
Oh,
which ones are you
um,
thinking
he
are
supports. All right. So the thing. All right. Let me actually get my little notes up right here. All right.
no
So
worries?
the first things first. I like how he's handling NATO. I think we were contributing way more than we should be in NATO.
Mhm.
I'm not for globalism. I do not like the having us too much in the global community. I do like
Mhm.
how he's pushing away from that. I love how he left the WHO. He was like, that was amazing in my opinion.
Mhm.
His economic policies are great. His deregulation and detaxation, like how he's lowering taxes, deregulating. The issue with that, of course, there are downsides to that, and of course, there's also policies I dislike, like his tariff, like his trade wars, and his escalation of the Middle East. Right. So there's a lot of things I don't like, but for the majority of the fact, I see a question that I would like to answer. Darla C.
Yeah.
QAnon.
Go for it.
QAnon.
Mhm.
So Darla. So with QAnon, so QAnon. I think they have a point sometimes. If you look at what they're talking about, a lot of times they're actually semi-right. Right? They have a half and half of right and wrong. So they talk about Trump giving secret messages through his tweet. You know what QAnon is, right?
Uh
I'll
I've
explain it.
I've heard of it, but I don't
So
follow it.
it's so basically there was this 4chan post a long time ago of a guy named Q.
Mhm.
And essentially he's like people think he's like a figurehead in the government, right? And like he knows Trump and like Trump and him are having secret plans and Trump
Oh.
relays these plans to the people through secret messages. It's pretty outlandish, right?
Mhm.
But the thing is that sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. And it's the times that they're right that I'm very curious
When
about
are
it.
they right? When have you noticed them being right?
So when Trump said about the April 10th, right? The lights at the end of the tunnel. They
Mhm.
found some secret coded message. I don't understand it, but they said that it was about child predators and how there was going to be some massive crackdown on it. And April 10th, there was a bunch of raids on child predators across the world. It was insane. I was like, how is this real? How
Hmm.
did they know, right? And so I do think that, but they're also wrong a lot of the times. Like they literally think Trump is a disciple of God or some shit like that. So they are
Mhm.
pretty outlandish, but sometimes they get it right, and that's when I get curious. That's why I follow the community. That's why I look into them. I'm not a believer. I just like the fact they're sometimes right, and it's very interesting to me.
Hmm. Now, what is your what's your beef with NATO? I mean, yeah, like,
We contribute too much. I feel like they're
uh-huh.
just a scourge on the world, right? They're the embodiment of the police state, in my opinion. You know how people think that the U.S. is the world police? I think that
Mhm.
happened through NATO. We all of a sudden we started getting involved in these global conflicts we have no business being a part of.
Mhm.
Iraq, Iran, all those is like why are we involved in Israel and Syria? What are we doing? We have our own problems here.
Yeah.
I'm reading the comments now.
Yeah, well, the people
It's
get
great.
pretty fired up in the comments.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, let me try and defend NATO and see what your thoughts are. One could take the position that NATO's origins, date back to the Cold War as a counterbalance against the Soviet Union, back when most Americans agreed that Russia was an adversary, and this was a great way to provide a disincentive for any kind of Soviet aggression, and it kind of worked. Like the Soviets didn't do anything. Cold War was in some ways very successful. Isn't world stability in the interest of the biggest economy in the world?
You see, I think that would make sense, right? Until you think about was Soviet Russia, they were spreading their beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to stop that, but why were we so afraid of it spreading? Again, I get it. I'm against communism, but let's be honest here. We shouldn't have. Yeah, exactly, right there. Yang sanity. NATO's obsolete, right? So I do semi agree with the creation of it to stop it. I don't like global, uniting to destroy one common enemy because that's just not how life works, right? Like the communists, they were bad, right? USSR was bad, but there is communist policies that are not bad. I'm not pro-communism again, but there are communist policies that I do agree with, like UBI can be seen as a communist policy. I disagree with that, but a lot of people put that up there, right? Universal basic healthcare makes sense. I don't like it, but it makes sense, right? Putting an option there that makes sense. I don't understand why we were so afraid of the USSR, why we felt the need to create this global army, right? And also, the USSR is gone, right? They disbanded like years ago, like what, 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah.
There's no mass. Yeah.
So like when Russia invaded the Crimean Peninsula, is your view like, hey, that's not far away, that's not our problem?
Exactly. Actually, that's far away, that's not our problem, let's stay home, right?
Right.
When we were afraid of Iran doing nuclear weapons, right? I mean, sure, we can talk to them. What the fuck are we doing invading? Like Iraq. Why are we invading them, right? Like, it's not our problem,
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna nuke us if if that gets to the point there. Then I say yes, we need to defend ourselves. But they didn't have nuclear weapons. I don't know why we were involved there. I don't think we should be involved in global conflicts we have no business being part of. The Vietnam War is another good one. The Korean War, I agree, we should have been involved there because it's a different situation.
Okay, so you're okay with the Korean War. Why the Korean War?
Because we were basically, if I'm correct for here, we were defending South Korea, because obviously South Korea so the Russia was trying to take over the entire Korea, right?
At that time, communist China was.
Yeah.
The North Koreans were. But I mean, I guess why wouldn't we take the same position that whatever, Korea's far away, not our problem?
I think South Korea are great allies. I think their technology has greatly benefited us, and it will continue greatly benefiting us. If I'm correct, they're the most technological advanced nation out there. And
yeah, they're definitely one of them.
Without the Korean War, they wouldn't be. They would be one of the lowest, in my opinion. They would be like North Korea because they would have lost.
Okay. So is the argument, well, it's okay. It was right for us to intervene in Korea because South Korea was an ally, and the result was a very kind of successful economy. That's
pretty much, yeah. Which you can't predict at the time, and I get that. So I'm not judging the previous actions, except for Bush. That was a horrible action, the Iraq War.
Well, you and I agree on that one. I think we found something we agree on. Yeah, the Iraq War.
Vietnam War. I don't think we should not have been involved. Like Vietnam.
Wars, so far you're okay with the Korean War.
I'm 100% okay with Japan. I think we shouldn't have bombed them, obviously, but I'm okay with the war with Japan we had because they attacked us. I think after Japan, we should have backed off a bit. But you know what? It worked out. Russia was winning anyways, so it didn't really affect the war. So, but I do agree with the World War II when we entered Japan. I disagree with entering World War I. There's a lot of different, there's a lot of wars out there. But
Yeah.
I think global conflicts we should start staying away unless it directly affects us. Taiwan, we should 100% help Taiwan and recognize them as a country. I'm reading a comment here.
But if China by force reacquired Taiwan,
then we should defend Taiwan. That's just guaranteed. They're an ally.
Really? Wow. That's so
so
interesting. Like you're anti-NATO, but you're
but I think we should defend them. I think we should put boots on the ground. I think we should defend them, right? I think 100% it should be recognized as a country. Did you watch the WHO video of the guy at the WHO who refused to acknowledge Taiwan as a country? That was insane to me. That was insane.
Yeah, those.
I love Tulsi. Tulsi's great.
So I think what you're saying is that it's more these kind of multinational organizations that you're uncomfortable
pretty
with.
much. Yeah, I think we defending Taiwan makes sense. Defending North Korea made sense, but NATO doesn't. Because why are we in the Middle East? Like, who are we defending? That's my question there. Who are we defending?
Oh, well, so the same way that Taiwan are allies, do you not see like France, Germany, UK as allies?
Well, are they being attacked? Why are we there? I do not see France.
They're not. They haven't been. They haven't been attacked. I mean, the argument is that maybe they weren't attacked because.
But then we can individually help on a case by case basis, right? But I don't want to be harbored down to where we are forced to do something, right? We're forced to put this amount of much money into it. We're forced to put, it should be our choice all the time.
Yeah.
Right. If France is attacked by, let's say France is attacked by just crazy, let's say France is attacked by the UK, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to be forced to pick one side, right? At that point, we should stay out of it. Both are allies. We don't have any business there anymore. We shouldn't.
If Germany is attacked by Russia,
we should 100% defend Germany.
We should.
Yeah.
Okay. And your point is we don't need NATO to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. We can make our own decisions.
Right. And is it a money thing? Because I think it's
a lot of it's how much funding we were putting in compared to the rest of the nations, how much work we were putting in compared to the rest of the nations. I do think that I understand the benefit of them. I just don't like them.
Yeah,
there is benefits, but there's also disbenefits, right? It holds us to a standard we cannot afford sometimes, and sometimes we need to think about it. I do, but I'm going to say this right now. I hate Trump's fiscal policies right now. The way he's spending money constantly, even before COVID, right? Yeah. Our spending was insane, and I understand that it was needed to help bolster the economy and all that stuff. But no, we can find other ways to do it. So I really wish you wouldn't do that, but also let's be honest here, Biden would have done it just about, right? If you compare the pricing of the Obama-Biden administration to Trump, it's not that much different, which sucks. And it seems that's always going to be the case.
Yeah, there's I have a chart here about the NATO spending. I want to chat with you about. Let's see if we can pull this one up.
I agree. Hong Kong is complicated. Lyndon B. Johnson.
So here, the defense expenditure for NATO as a percentage of each donor country's gross domestic product, for sure, the guideline is 2%, and the U.S. is
way
close
over
to 3.25%. So I agree. We're definitely paying the lion's share, but it's not like countries are not paying anything.
Yeah, but I think the thing is that we contribute more than we should, and other countries aren't contributing enough. That's my belief.
Right. So when you see the UK putting in a little around 2% and us putting in 3.25%,
can I see the legend? What does the blue compared to the yellow mean?
Oh, I think it's the direction from 2014 to 2019.
Yep. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so basically we're going to be putting in...
I really wish we were more like Greece, putting in a little bit less.
Okay, well, let me make this argument to you, that when you are the biggest beneficiary and the largest economy, you tend to, it's like sort of like the biggest tenant in a mall may pay more towards like security and the parking and everything because they kind of benefit the most from it.
percentage-wise, regardless, if we were paying 2% and everyone else was paying 2%, we would still be paying more than everyone else because we have the highest GDP.
Right. So you don't think there should be a premium beyond the two, just everybody.
And we aren't really
biggest
benefiting
economy
that much
pays
from NATO.
2%.
Yeah, and we aren't really benefiting from that much from NATO. I don't know why we're in it. Like, this is my opinion.
Yeah, no.
I don't see how we're benefiting from it. I understand how other countries are benefiting from it, but I don't see us personally benefiting from it. Like, if Russia invaded us, I think we would be able to handle. I think we'd be able to handle it, like, even without any other support. If it was just Russia versus U.S., I think U.S. would win immediately. I think it would be a hard war. A lot of people would die, but I think it would be a win for us in the long run.
Yeah. And just someone was asking, or my brother Peter, who's a fellow Trump supporter.
Yeah, I love Peter. Yeah, I was watching the live streams. He's great.
Yeah, he's interesting. We love you,
great.
Peter.
He's great.
I know, Peter. You're with kindred spirits.
What did he ask?
Well, he was like, "Oh, how much is Germany paying?" So Germany's paying less than 1.5%.
Yeah, that's not okay, right?
I get you guys. Are there? What about the United Nations then? Couldn't you argue like, why?
I think we should leave the United Nations. Yeah, 100%. I think we should leave it. Yep. I think we can make our own domestic policy. We can talk to people ourselves. I think they do not have our best interest at heart. I think since Trump has gone and they've changed their tune to us, because Trump has shown that he doesn't give a shit, right? If you talk shit to him, he's gonna come back and he's not gonna stop, right? So I think Trump has shown that he is able to accurately help protect our interests in the global scale, right?
Well, let me ask you, what is the role of the U.S. in the world community? If
it should be nothing. It should be, we have our own trade allies, great. We have our own allies, great, but we should not be in the global economy. We should not be in the global. I think we should move manufacturing here, minimize our trade with allies like the UK. We should continue trading with them, France, South Korea, Canada, obviously, Mexico. We should regulate our trade to a few select allies. We should not be trading with China, supporting their economy when they're having aggressive stances against us. Now, China turned around and was like, "Yo, America, we're chill now. Let's trade, right? And we have friendly relations. Then 100%, let's trade with them." But that's not what's happening at the moment.
So if we did that, probably 80-90% of what's in Walmart would be
it's
going
to take a while. We're going to move our manufacturing to America. That's what's going to happen, or to Mexico, Canada, to any of our allies, really. And any of them benefits, we benefit, in my opinion.
And is your beef with China intellectual property or currency manipulation?
It's the fact that it's the Communist Party leading it. That's my biggest beef with them. Yeah,
right.
Their human rights abuses. They're the fact that they are a threat, right? Their economy is extremely strong. Right now they're number 2. After COVID-19, they're going to be number 1, guaranteed. Their economy was the first to come back up. Our economy is going to be one of the later ones to come back up. They're going to become number 1. I don't know how long it's going to be number 1, but we'll see.
Right. So I could argue that our job is to do whatever is in the best interest of the American people. And if access to lower cost goods allows our people to have more things for less money, that's not the end of the world. People have big screen TVs for like less than $1,000 now. That ain't gonna happen if you build it in the U.S.
I think it can happen if we bring manufacturing here with the implementation of automation. The fourth industrial revolution is coming very soon to make manufacturing much more accessible. If we combine that with a UBI, so everyone is able to. So when these low skill jobs are out, like manufacturing, car workers, building plasma TV, all that stuff gets replaced by AI, which is going to happen. That's guaranteed. There's no question about it. So that's going to increase manufacturing. It's going to lower manufacturing costs. Less people are going to have jobs, which is why we need a UBI plan implemented in order to let people transition to new jobs, whatever, because new jobs will be made. We just don't know what those jobs are right now, and that's the scary part, right?
Yeah. So it's fantastic that we both think UBI is a sensible policy. When you chat with other Trump supporters, do you find openness to it, or what's your?
It's really half and half. One half they think about it. A lot of them go to it, but the other half decide, yeah, you're a communist immediately. So it's either they are open, like like the trucker for Yang, right? Truckers for Yang, the Trumper for Yang on Twitter. A lot of these really good Trump supporters who also support Yang, because they, again, in my opinion, Yang and Trump are closer than Joe Biden and Yang. That's my opinion.
I could see that argument.
Yeah,
I could see that argument. Certainly in terms of understanding the struggles of middle America and working class people.
Yeah, when Yang, that's what really got me on Yang. When he started talking about how Trump got elected, I was like, this dude is right. It was a mixture of the jobs being moved away, the fact it was just Hillary Clinton, and then the DNC just pushing they just kept on pushing the wrong people. And those people decided they're either not going to vote or they're going to vote for Trump.
Do you one of the things that I've appreciated about Yang is I feel like he's very honest and authentic and nuanced in his thinking, and has a really strong mastery of like data and facts and logic. Yeah,
with Yang, there's no question about his stance on a thing. Where he is, he'll be consistent unless he's shown data otherwise.
Yeah.
And also he's willing to change his mind if he's seeing data. He's not changing his mind with the people, like with populism, right? He's changing his mind with what makes sense, what the data shows. Yeah, I agree. Yang is very good on that kind of stuff, when Trump rather isn't, because he isn't very good at like saying what he wants to say. When he says it, he says it in a way where people misunderstand, where people misquote, because he's trying to get that reaction. Trump is very, very, very methodical and very calculated about how he speaks to the media, and it's not very good to do, but also it's funny, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it definitely gets a rise out of a lot of people.
Yep, and then when they're proven wrong, it's really hard, because even if you prove them wrong, Trump did it on purpose. It's not like they misunderstood him. He purposely misled them to misunderstand him. And
how does anyone know what Trump really believes?
That's where the issue comes. I think it really comes from who he surrounds himself with and what policies he actually implements. And it's one of the parts I don't like about Trump, is he isn't very transparent about what he believes, because he likes to mess with the media, right? Like let's go back to 2015, when he jumped on the stage and started screaming about deporting every single illegal immigrant, right? Obviously that's not what he did, right? He's actually deporting less illegal immigrants than Obama administration did, which is pretty insane to me, but I really wish he wasn't, but whatever. Whatever. But so he said those things to get a rise out of people, and it worked. He became the nominee. People were laughing, so people started voting for him.
Yeah,
he won because he was funny. That's my opinion.
So
and of course, those other problems. Yeah,
Noah, you and I started, trading points of view. I think one of the things was when the coronavirus started really picking up, and we were debating about testing and ventilators, and lately you and I have been talking about masks. Yeah. Like, what's your take on this? Do you feel like Trump has been doing a good job?
I think Trump has done what he is supposed to do. He is the president. He's not the mayors. He's not the governor. I think the mayors are meant to be in charge of their own natural disasters. They should have complete control there. They should be but I'll go into my criticism of Trump later. But so I think the mayors are the ones who should be responsible for their city, right? They should be the ones responsible for the natural disaster there. The governors are meant to help their mayors, and and Trump is meant to help the governors. I think he's done that enough. My issue with Trump is I think that he has sort of gone a little bit too far, actually, in his reaction. If you remember.
Right.
If you remember when he was talking about he has total authority, that's just not true. That's just an infactual statement. Regardless of how you put that, that's just not true. Right? And of course, he said that on purpose because he wanted the media to flip out. But if he actually acted on that, I would have immediately went third party. Thankfully, he hasn't so far.
So let me push.
Let me answer this question real quick.
A little bit on the Oh yeah,
You there?
go.
All right, dumb dub dev. So all right. So you say they don't have enough money, except why don't they have enough money? They have federal funding already. Trump has unlocked the funds through the national emergencies, right? The mayors have unlocked the funds. The governors have unlocked the funds. They all have the funds. So what should we give them extra funds because they were already in debt previous to the COVID-19? It sounds like they should be taking care of their state better, including
So
Republican states.
let's say you were right. Let's say there were a city or a state that's woefully kind of behind budget even before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are we supposed to say like, oh well,
Well,
because you
with
were
the
fiscally
unlocked fund, yep.
irresponsible, we're not going to help you?
Yeah, but we unlocked funds, right? With the disaster declaration or whatever it was called. We unlocked their funds. They have access to the funding. I think I do have an issue here. Is there is actual too much involvement with the Trump administration, not Trump himself, but his administration going into states and actually taking supplies away. Have you heard about that?
That he went into states and took supplies away?
Yeah, so they interfered with the trade of a state and something in some company, and they actually took supplies from that for the national stockpile. That's where I'm like, okay, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. That is not following the rules.
So let me try and make a case for more federal involvement and coordination and see what you think.
All right.
So for sure, most issues I think are best dealt with by local governments, just because they're smaller, they know what the situation, and they have less bureaucracy than DC. There are some things where I would argue there are some things where like you do want a national effort, like let's say exploration of space or a war. Or in this case, a pandemic. And it's just not efficient to have 50 different coronavirus strategies and plans. Like you should probably have a national strategy.
So my issue with that is not one size doesn't fit everything, right? So if you're going to Arizona, which has one of the lesser infections, right? There's not many infections in Arizona compared to New York. Should New York and Arizona have the same strategy? When New York has almost 100, way more infections than Arizona, about 100 times more infections than Arizona has. Should they have the same strategy? No, I don't think so.
No, they don't need to have the same strategy, but I guess there's a middle ground. Like there has to be.
Well, I think the middle ground is what we're doing right now, which is Trump having, Yes, he is helping. Some states, not all states. I don't understand why, but again, But I think the issue here is really where do we stop, right? Because the cities. So normally, under normal circumstances, natural disasters are handled by the city, right? It's handled by the mayor. It's handled by the city government. Now, this is a natural disaster. It might be a pandemic. It's still a natural disaster. So should we change the rule all of a sudden and give Trump power to take control of whatever? Right? I don't think we should, because then you know what Trump would do? Exactly what Democrats don't want him to do, which he'll unlock every state, right? Which I don't think he should do. Of course not.
So the middle ground for me is like, I'm not saying that Trump should start rolling in like the army to take over these states, but I also feel like it's a poor example of leadership to have these guidelines for reopening produced by his administration and then pretty much like contradict it himself and say, well, the governor should decide, they should open when they want, when they're basically flouting it's not like the official CDC plan is taking the New York plan and applying it to Arizona. They're like saying, hey, you should have 2 weeks where positive cases are going down and your hospital utilization is less than X%. These are not like very specific requirements.
The issue here is, again, I think if the federal government then imposes those guidelines on states, right? Even if it's even through the CDC, I don't think that's okay, because the states should have power of their own state, right? So I think that's where the issue is. I think that's where voters come in. When's the next governor election? Is that in 2 years? 2022, I think.
I guess it depends. Probably doesn't depend on the state, or
I guess so. Yeah. Or I guess that will depend on if you think, let's say you're looking at Georgia, right? When they reopened, like they just reopened,
Mhm.
they decided, we'll just reopen. Let's just do it, right? And Trump got angry about that,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So that's for the voters to decide if they thought that was the right decision or not, in my opinion. Um, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess my view would be if you're going to take federal money and then you're going to just do stuff like in complete contravention of our guidelines, then maybe we don't want to give you that money because, like,
I
clearly
agree there.
you're
I
just
agree that
doing your own
Georgia,
thing.
if Georgia follows through with their just reopen immediately, there's no follow the guidelines. Don't wait. Don't just do like the
Mhm.
basic things you should do. They shouldn't get federal funding. I agree with that. I think New York should be the. I don't understand. So apparently, is California helping other states? Like I heard they were sending supplies to people.
Yeah, I think California stocked up on ventilators
Yeah.
and some
See, that's what I
PPE.
want to see more of. I want to see states helping each other. I want to see them collaborating. I want to see them sending
Mhm.
stuff to each other. Let's say Arizona, where there isn't a lot of infections. Most of the infections are not that serious in Arizona, at least.
Mhm.
So since we have the extra supplies, we should go ahead and send some to a place that may need the supplies, like a rural area in Michigan, where they're having a lot of infection right now. Especially hitting hard is like the smaller towns for some reason. I don't understand why, but right now it seems that the smaller towns are being hit really hard right now. So I
So
think that state
if
corroboration, I think, is the best.
if you took that example down a level and you said, "Hey, cities and towns should help each other," you would naturally think, well, maybe the governor could help coordinate this because they could be like a clearinghouse for information, and
Yeah,
they could try and
yeah. So again,
find.
I think that should be the mayor should be the first responders, right? They should be the
Mhm.
first ones on the case. Governor should then help the mayors, and the president should then help the governor. That's how it's supposed to work, in my opinion, and how I'm pretty sure it's written out.
So, as an example, the governors now of California, Washington State,
Mhm.
Oregon are part of this alliance,
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah,
right?
I like that. I think
And
there should be more of that.
but what if Georgia needed more help than Oregon? Why should California help Oregon?
Because so here's the thing, like, all right, so I think here's the thing, it's really hard to say, right? But again, I think that's where personal responsibility comes in, and I think that the Georgia is responsible for Georgia. That's number
Mm.
one. And then I think the governor should be sending messages to the president saying we need more aid, and then the president could then decide on a case by case basis. But I don't think they should. Again, I think that the
No.
state should be responsible for the state.
What happens if Georgia's experiment, like, let's be clear, Georgia's gamble may pan
Yeah,
out. Like,
I
they
don't, I
might
still
be
don't
like,
like it, but yeah, it
right?
could work out.
And they'll be like, look how smart we were. But let's just say there's some percentage probability that
Yep.
it actually goes badly, and Georgia becomes a hotspot for COVID-19 infections. What's your view on Georgians? Kind of traveling in this borderless environment where they can go to Florida and they can go to drive up to
I
New
think
York.
states should be allowed to close travel. If they don't want someone coming into the state, they should be allowed to do that unless they're a citizen of that state, right? Unless they have a state ID. They should be allowed to restrict that kind of travel, in my opinion. But of course, I guess that does create issues of they don't have that
Mhm.
authority. But
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
I think the thing is America isn't built for a global pandemic, right? America is built for peacetime, right?
Mhm.
We are not built for global. That's just purely how it is, right? We're not built for crisis. We're built for peace, which is the most of the time, right?
And if this becomes a new normal where
It won't be. I don't think it will be, but okay, go on.
let's say it does,
Yep.
and there's more of these sort of viral things, do you think how do we reconcile your point that, well, the country's really not set up to
If
deal
it
with that
continues
stuff?
to go that way, then we need to restructure the country. There's,
Yeah.
we need to rethink it. Like, okay, this worked for a while, but well, we've had 4 global pandemics in the last 5
Mhm.
years. I think we should move on. We
Right.
should.
And then might be okay with more federal
I would
power.
still be against it, but I would understand it, right? Yeah, I would understand the purpose of it. I would still vote
Mhm.
against it. I'd still be against it, but I'd understand the purpose. So yeah.
Oh, Vaughn just had a super
Yep.
chat. He says that you should consider
I'm
joining
good.
the military
I'm good.
for the advantage of a real and strict
Chain of command. Yeah.
chain of command. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I can do that at an office just as well.
Right. So, I mean, my sense from you, Noah, is that you're kind of an old school states' rights kind of.
Yep, exactly.
You don't like extremely
If it was up to me, we
overbearing
would
central government.
still have the Articles in Confederation. That's my personal opinion. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's how I am. If it was up to me, we would still have that Article of Confederation.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get you. So then, what's your view on Trump's impeachment? Did you think that was a complete?
I think that the purpose of it, I understand like impeachment is a good thing. Not of Trump, but in general, impeachment is a good thing. It should be allowed. The issue is it was completely on partisan lines. You know, you saw maybe 2 or 3 people go across the party, right? And when you have that one person, and then about a couple Democrats, I think, someone did a no vote, and one person said present or something. People got really pissed about that. But when it's something on party lines, even if the Democrats had majority in both, it shouldn't work. It should be both sides, which never happens, of course. But both sides should be the ones impeaching, right? It should be. I think honestly, it should be a majority of Democrats in the Congress and majority of Republicans in the Congress both have to agree, or the majority of people. Right, if we just waited for, I think elections are better than impeachment when it's this close, right? But at the same time, yeah, impeachment is important, but also it was on complete partisan lines. That's the issue here.
Well, let's just say as just for shits and giggles, let's say that he really did withhold that money from the Ukrainians.
So here's what we got. We have to define if that is high crimes and misdemeanor, or if it's bribery. First, that needs to be defined. It needs to be, of course, defined by the House, right? And it was at the Senate, and that's where they have their little. Let's be honest here. That was not a court proceeding at all. That was nothing close to a trial, right?
Not a lot of witnesses.
It was just a partisan. It was a partisan show, right? For both sides. The Democrats wanted to show they have the power to put an asterisk by Trump's name. And the Republicans responded by saying, "We don't care," right? That, in my opinion, it was a complete partisan show. Regardless, even if he let's say the worst case scenario, let's say Trump was bribing the Ukraine, right? Unless it wasn't a partisan show from both sides, I don't think it would be a real impeachment, right?
So I get your point about when you impeach the president, it needs to be bipartisan. I get that. I'm just curious, do you think that it was a terrible thing that he did?
I do not think what he did was impeachable or even bad, in my opinion. I don't think he. So with the withholding of aid, let's be honest here. He didn't withhold any aid because it was sent out on time, right? It was sent out when it was meant to be sent out. If that is because he got caught or not, we don't know at this point, right? I don't know for sure, but there is a possibility that is because he just got caught, right? So the issue is that we don't know, and also I think Hunter Biden should be investigated.
Let's say Joe Biden were president, and he's decides to run for a second term, and then Trump, who knows? Trump challenges him. I guess
that'd be amazing.
That
would be insane.
That would be crazy, but it would be good TV. Then Biden says to China, "Hey, I'm not going to lift these tariffs unless you help me find out."
Okay, but if he directly said that, then of course. But he didn't directly say that. He sort of did like the mafia kind of thing. You're like, I heard this thing about this guy. And we got this thing going on in a few months. And the issue is that we have to interpret that the way, that's impossible to do when we have partisanship that we have, right?
So you think he was just saying, "Hey, I'm going to withhold this aid"?
I don't think he was going to withhold the aid. I think he was just saying, there's this problem we have of this company called Burisma, who is a little bit sketchy, and our money has disappeared from before. Let's go and look into that, right? Which they did before, and then I don't know the full situation. I just know that all of a sudden the prosecutor, I guess he was disliked by the global community. So he was fired. I think the suspicious part was that Joe Biden was the guy sent. That was kind of a bad idea of Obama to send Joe Biden to do that because of the conflict of interest. I'm not claiming to know anything about that. I'm just saying that it was a bad idea.
You're not convinced that that what Trump did was
I don't think it was bribery. I don't think it was high crimes and misdemeanors. Look what Magnus Purpose. The call did feel like that, in my opinion.
Right.
But again, what I feel isn't what was true, and sadly, we don't have the audio recording of it, because then we would know, because you would tell by the tone. Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's clever. He's not going to say, I want dirt on Biden. Right?
You should seize the calls that Paranis, what is his name? Some guy he released of audio tape of Trump literally just sounding like a mafia member. But you know, of course he was a real estate developer in New York, right? Most likely he's learned from them. He has those connections, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no denying it. You can't be a real estate developer in New York that big and not have connections to the mafia, right? Especially the years he was active, right? There's no way.
Yeah, I would imagine he's not unfamiliar with making trades of favors. I'm sure he's done it.
Oh, but also, can you please highlight Trumper for Yang's comment? They did try to impeach Trump. I think it was 5 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was a few months after he gained office, right? So when you have that constant berating of impeachments for most of the time, no reason at all, right? The first one, I don't even know what it was about. Like it was about some comment he made or something, but they kept on trying it. Eventually, they're gonna get something that sticks, right? I'm sure as soon as if he wins 2020, who knows? If he wins, he doesn't have the Senate or the House, or both, right? He's screwed. He's gonna be gone. He's gonna be removed immediately. That's my personal opinion.
I kind of feel like both statements can be true simultaneously, that the Democrats could have had a fever to try and get this guy, and he really did terrible things. Again,
I read the call. It doesn't look like bribery to me, but also I'm not an intelligent person, so who knows. But essentially my opinion is that unless the issue is go to the people.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you solve this problem. You put a like a ballot, impeach, not impeach, and give it to everyone. See what happens.
So what's your view on the people's ability to get fair and balanced information?
It's horrible. No one can get it. It's impossible at this point. And the only way to get fair and balanced information is by looking at multiple sources or primary sources. Otherwise, you're screwed, right? If you watch Fox News, you're going to have one bias. You watch CNN, you're going to have another bias. There's no way around it at this point. The way I do it is I look at foreign news sites like the BBC. There's some good New Zealand ones. And when they talk about America politics, they're relatively unbiased, like from our point of view, right? They don't have the partisanship that we have because our Liberal Party is their conservative party pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't really a big bias there. So if you want really good news about about the US stuff, go to foreign news sites. That's the best way to get unbiased information. You're just looking at one source.
All right. Well, we're about to take questions from the audience. There's a lot of people fired up about our conversation. But before we do, I did want to ask you, Noah, about the mask thing, because that's a kind of a strong point of disagreement in America today.
All right, you give your point of view, and I'll give mine.
Yeah. So my point of view is that masks are effective at reducing the spread of all kinds of germs, and that I feel like the government actually, maybe you and I might agree in some regards on this. I actually don't really trust what the federal government was saying when they said that, masks have been proven not to matter, but they need them for the critical workers, the healthcare workers. I was thinking, like, well, if it doesn't work, why do you need them for the healthcare workers? And I just feel like today, now I think the CDC has updated their guidelines saying, actually maybe you should wear some handkerchief or something across your face, or a mask if you can get one. But I'm also frustrated by Pence and Trump sort of refusing to wear masks. I understand they get tested regularly, but it's like, if I tell my kids to wear a helmet when they ride their bike, and I don't wear a helmet when I ride my bike, and I say, well, I'm just more careful than you, it just doesn't seem to be consistent.
So I do have a point of view there. So the way I see it is, I don't think masks are that effective in stopping the spread because of the way it spreads. It's not just droplets anymore, right? We now know that it is in the air. Like, not if you breathe, it's gonna stay in the air, right? That's like, what the. There's not. If you have a mask, most people don't wear it correctly. They don't wear it airtight. They fiddle with it, like what they said there. If you start messing with the mask, right, what are you doing, right? You're just touching your face. But apart from that, most people don't wear it correctly, and if you're not wearing it correctly, there's no point in wearing it. And if you want to wear it correctly, have you seen the
Oh,
pictures of people wearing masks for long periods of time? It's not pretty when you wear it correctly. It hurts, it's uncomfortable, and it leaves marks for a long time, like for like 24,
couldn't you
48
make the
hours.
same? Couldn't you make the same argument about washing your hands? That doesn't work
Well,
100% of the time,
but
and you
but
have to do it
it's much
correctly.
easier than figuring out how to do an airtight mask to wash your hands for 20 seconds, right? Um,
Hmm.
but I do agree. I do think that it does stop droplets, but I don't think that's going to be enough. If we looked at the way it spreads, right? It hasn't really been decreasing that much since we implemented mask. And
So
again,
you,
not a lot of people wearing them, but who knows? Again, it can be tested. I don't see any harm in testing mask, right? But I
Mhm.
don't think Trump. I think Trump doesn't think they work, and that's why he's not wearing them.
Now I did watch a press conference where the Surgeon General
Yeah,
was
that's
standing next to Trump, and he said, "No, we are updating our guidance. We encourage everyone to wear masks."
So I think the thing is, I think he disagrees with his experts, right? His advisors, but he's not going to outwardly just like discredit his own advisors right now. That's not the time to discredit your health advisors, right? I just think he disagrees. That's just my.
Yeah. So
Um,
his leadership model is, I don't agree with what these people are saying,
but
but
he
I'm going
well,
to let them say
well,
what
he well,
they.
he can't just go out and say, "Hey, there's a global pandemic," but Surgeon General, you're fired, right? That's not going to work out. That's going to be really bad, right? And he can go up there and just start like contradicting, which he did in the beginning. He was contradicting experts, right?
Mhm.
I think he's learned his lesson not to do that. I think he learned his lesson to just let his experts speak, let them have their own opinions, and let them speak those opinions. And if Trump wants to disagree, once he gets the data, I'm sure he will.
All right.
Trump
All
isn't really
right.
good at getting data, but
Yeah, I guess I'm going to disagree with you there. Noah, not a big surprise. I kind of feel like, hey, look, if you're a leader and the buck stops with you and you believe that masks are completely unnecessary, either it's your job to convince yourself that you're right or wrong with data and information. And once you make a call, then you can have your kind of apparatus and your team say things that you fundamentally disagree with, because then it just sends a mixed signal
Mhm.
to the country. Like, let's
See,
pick a
I
lane.
I think the issue, yeah. So the issue here is it's a very complicated situation, right? Because there's a global pandemic, it's his experts, and his experts are contradicting themselves, right?
Hmm.
So, like you said, like when they first came out, they were like, "Don't wear a mask," right? Dr. Fauci was like, "Don't wear a mask, you're gonna infect yourself," right? Like exactly what I said. And now they're saying, "Wear a mask or you'll infect other people." But then they're saying both have to wear a mask or you'll infect other people, right? They keep on changing how it
Hmm.
works. And that's where I'm like, if you want to wear a mask, go ahead and wear a mask. That's your choice, but it should be a choice.
Hmm.
Like Trump makes his choice to not wear a mask. I make
Right.
my choice to also not wear a mask. I'm not going outside. I never go outside.
Now, the Surgeon General works for at the pleasure of the president. He can say, like, look, I don't want you to issue this guidance about telling
Yeah,
people to
but I
wear a
don't
mask.
think he wants to currently, fight with Dr. Fauci or Dr. Bricks or his
Hmm.
Surgeon General, especially in the presence of the media, which can then use that against him. I think he's
Hmm.
trying to be extra careful now since he's learned his lesson,
Hmm.
since telling people to, just bad advice.
So he'll just sort of passive aggressive disagree with them.
Yeah, I don't agree with it, but I think it's a special circumstance because we're kind of in a global pandemic right now. So you
All
have
right.
to you have to make sacrifices at that point in order to. It's a hard situation.
Yeah. All right. Let's take Tamar's question. What do you think of the rallies back when he was doing rallies like in February, I think. But regardless of the COVID stuff, like, have you observed his rallies? As an example, my
His
brother
rally,
went
yeah,
to one. He thought it was amazing.
yeah. They are amazing. They are quite amazing. I'm not gonna lie. The energy and the amount
Hmm.
of people there and the diversity of people there is it's not what you expect from a Republican candidate at
Hmm.
all. About your second question about injecting disinfectant, that is not what he said. There's actual transcripts of what he said, and what he meant was he was talking about the light therapy, which is a real thing. It's being tested right now. This light therapy, they actually put a light through your throat, and then they actually use UV light to disinfect your lungs. It's really weird, but you can Google it. It's a real thing. It's called light therapy for COVID-19, and there's studies right now about it. Fuck it. There's studies about it going on right now, so we'll see how that pans out. I think it was dumb the way he phrased it, right? It's not a disinfectant, but what he meant was it was disinfecting your system, which is why he then corrected himself immediately after. I think where he went wrong was he, for some reason, he was being sarcastic when he wasn't. That was weird.
When you watched the video, did you think he looks like he was making a sarcastic?
No, but he wasn't being sarcastic. I was watching live when it happened. I was like, dude, you just fucked up, right? That was my first reaction because I knew who he was talking about. I knew he was talking about the light therapy. Yeah. He was talking about the light therapy, which is the UV light. But he then went back on that claim and said he was being sarcastic, which is where he messed up the most, in my opinion. He should have doubled down and talked about the light therapy, but he didn't. But whatever.
This does go to your point about communication. Like, on some things he's very direct and blunt, but on other things
he's not. Yeah,
it's like
it's because he's trying to bait the media. He's trying to be in the news, right? If you remember, in 2016, he got $200 million in free advertising because of CNN, right? That's how he advertises his campaign through just a hyperbolic claims that make people talk, right? That's how, free advertising. That's why he's able to spend $75 million on his election and get elected.
All right. I know we only have about a few more minutes left. I want to get through some more questions, Noah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any role for the federal government? Isn't it the ultimate? No.
Nope. The federal government is meant to represent us on the global community and us as a nation and the states. They're the representative of the states, not the collaborator of the states. That's my personal opinion. Well,
you've been very consistent on that one. Would you want people to have papers to cross state lines?
No, but I think it should be the state's rights to make that decision. Do I think that'd be okay? No, I'd be against that. I'd protest against it. But it should be the state's rights to make that decision.
What is your view on, like, let's say we don't have a vaccine? Do you think there should be documentation on people who have antibody?
Nope. The way I think we should handle that is we should antibody test everyone. And if we can get that, if we need to get a percentage, we need to tell the people themselves if they do not have antibodies, they should stay home for a bit. Once we have enough people with immunity, we can then open up the nation because we have herd immunity at that point. If we have a good percentage, we now have herd immunity. So, but we should not be tracking them. We should not be using an app to trace their location and trace who they contact with, because that's, well as anyone, everything can be hacked, and that is not a very good thing to have hacked, right? You don't want your location out there with everyone you've ever talked to being tracked and have hackers have access to that information. The NHS, they released their app's source code on GitHub. So you can read through, and if they did something like that, I'd be more okay with it, because that makes sure yourself that you're not being information is not being unnecessarily grabbed and all the other information. All
right.
But it just depends.
Bayer has a question. Does Q? I guess that's the QAnon dude.
Bill Gates is, in my opinion, corrupt. I think he is heavily involved in the coronavirus. I think he is going to be heavily profiting from the vaccine, and I think his net worth is going to double. And we'll see that.
Oh, so your view is not there's a narrative that Bill Gates has donated a lot of his wealth to the Gates Foundation and trying to eradicate malaria, and he's trying to do a lot of good work.
Yes.
And your view is that no, there's something else going on.
I think that good work is a guise for something else. Again, I have no evidence for that. That's just my personal opinion, because a lot of what is happening right now is connected to Bill Gates, and it's very weird. But I'm not saying he created it. I'm just saying right now that Bill Gates I don't trust him. Windows is bad, right? I think it was Windows Vista. I was like, you know what? I don't trust this guy anymore.
Noah, you and I could talk for a while longer, but I've got to wrap up.
Yep.
But I did want to ask you one last question. What's your view on the origin theories of COVID-19?
I think so. Here's what I think happened. I can tell you step by step. I think that coronavirus. I think there was a coronavirus found in a bat. I think that the Chinese government then took that bat and took it to a lab. I think the Chinese government was investigating that to figure out what this new virus is they found, how it can affect people, and the transmission qualities of it. I think that one of the scientists got infected, and I think they accidentally released it into the world. Then I think they hid the information because they knew, well, shit, this happened, but you know what? We have head start. So let's keep this head start. Let's make sure our economy is the first one to come back up after everyone's crashes, and then we become number one. That's my personal opinion.
You know, it's not crazy. I guess it might be one of those things where we never know.
I think we will know because I think Trump thinks the same thing I think, and I do believe he's investigating it well. If you've seen his actions recently of him, he stayed at the Wuhan lab. That was, when I first saw this, I looked on Google Maps and I saw a Wuhan lab with a recolored umbrella logo from Resident Evil. I immediately was like, yeah, this was not an accident. This was an accident, but it was not what they say it was.
So the thing that this is where we get into Trump's desire to always be the center of attention and kind of mess with people.
Yep. Yeah.
Because now, if he did say that, I believe that there was a vulnerability in a lab and there's culpability and liability.
A lot of people
would be like, I don't know, is this like another thing where you're trying to spin us all up?
And that is where I think that Trump does fail people with the way, but also I don't think he'd be elected if he didn't do that. Right. This is where the issue comes in. Right. Trump uses the media as free advertisement, but that comes at a cost of his credibility in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah. Well, Noah, it has been a complete pleasure. And I love how we look at the world very differently, but we're still able to have a conversation.
Yep, and agree on a lot of things. So I can make sure into this real quick. I think the media's narrative that people are completely divided is wrong. I think a normal conversation between people with different political views can happen as long as they're not being berated by this guy's evil, right? You know, we need to stop with this one's evil, and remember that everything is in black and white, right? That's how you have conversations, because you can be wrong. I could be wrong. Everyone can be wrong, right?
But Vista is pretty bad.
But Vista is horrible, yeah.
All right, Noah. With that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds.